Let's talk about the reasons so many women after menopause start eating more protein, trying to be healthier, even pushing themselves to work out a little more, and still feel like their body is getting softer, weaker, and less responsive. Because for a lot of women, the problem after menopause is not that they suddenly became lazy. It is not that they stopped caring. And it is definitely not that their body is broken beyond repair. The real problem is that after menopause, muscle stops responding the way it used to. And if you do not understand that one change, you can do a lot of healthy things and still watch your strength slowly disappear. That is exactly why protein alone is not enough. Yes, protein matters a lot. But after menopause, if all you do is increase protein and hope your body turns that into muscle, you are missing the one signal that tells your body what that protein is actually for. And that signal is not another supplement. It is not another detox. It is not cutting more carbs. It is not walking a little longer on the treadmill. It is resistance training, done the right way, at least twice a week. That is the part most women are never told clearly enough, because the message they usually hear is, just eat more protein. But muscle is not built from food alone. Muscle is built when your body gets a reason to keep it. And after menopause, your body needs a stronger reason than it used to. Here is what is happening behind the scenes. Before menopause, hormones help protect your muscle tissue more than most women realize. Estrogen is not just about periods, mood, or hot flashes. It also affects muscle repair, recovery, and how your tissues respond to signals that tell them to maintain strength. When estrogen starts dropping, the environment that used to help you preserve muscle becomes less favorable. That means the exact same meal that used to support your body may no longer have the same effect. The exact same casual exercise that used to keep you toned may no longer be enough. And the exact same weight you maintained for years may suddenly feel much harder to manage because lean tissue is changing underneath the surface. This is why some women say, I'm not even eating that much, but I feel weaker. Or, I'm getting enough protein, so why do my arms and legs still look smaller and softer? Or, I'm active all day, but I don't feel strong anymore. Because activity and muscle building are not the same thing. Movement is good. Walking is good. Staying generally active is very good. But protecting muscle after menopause requires a more specific signal, a challenge, a demand, a reason for the body to say, we need to keep this tissue. We still need this strength. Without that demand, the body becomes very efficient in the worst way possible. It starts asking, do we really need all this muscle? Because muscle is expensive. It costs energy to maintain. If we're not using it in a meaningful way, maybe we can downsize. And slowly, quietly, that is what it starts doing. This is part of the reason menopause can feel so frustrating. A woman may actually be trying harder than before, but getting less visible return. Not because effort does not matter, but because the body's sensitivity has changed. Researchers sometimes describe this with the idea of anabolic resistance, which basically means muscle becomes harder to stimulate. In simple language, the body becomes less impressed. The old signal that used to be enough is no longer enough. So the question becomes, if muscle after menopause is less responsive, how do you get it to listen again? And the answer is not to panic. The answer is to become more strategic. Protein is still essential, but protein is raw material. It is not a command by itself. Think about it this way. If you dropped off a pile of bricks in front of a house, would that automatically build a wall? No. You still need a construction signal. You still need labor. You still need a reason those materials get used. That is exactly how protein works in your body. Protein gives you amino acids, the building blocks. One of those amino acids, leucine, is especially important because it helps trigger muscle protein synthesis. In other words, it helps send a message that says, it's time to build. But a message is not the whole project. Your body still needs to believe that building muscle is worth doing. And one of the strongest ways to create that belief is resistance training. This is the shift women need to understand. Exercise after menopause is not just for burning calories. It is not just for staying busy. It is not just one more item on a wellness checklist. Resistance training is what opens the door and tells the body where to send the nutrients. That is why the topic here is so important. After menopause, protein is not enough. Do this twice a week to protect muscle. Not because twice a week is magical in some trendy way, but because regular progressive resistance training gives your body repeated reminders that strength is still required. And once your body gets that message, protein suddenly becomes much more useful. Now, let's go one level deeper, because this is where women either waste years guessing or finally start seeing change. Many women respond to midlife body changes by doing more of the exact thing that preserves the least muscle. They undereat, they overdo cardio, and they avoid lifting anything challenging because they are afraid of injury, bulking, or doing it wrong. But muscle is not protected by fear. It is protected by use, and not just use in the everyday sense of carrying groceries or going up the stairs. That helps, yes, but it does not fully replace training. Training means you deliberately ask the muscle to produce force against resistance. That can be machines, dumbbells, barbells, cables, weighted carries, resistance bands, or even body weight when it is programmed progressively. The key is not the equipment. The key is the challenge. Your body adapts to challenge. If there is no challenge, there is no reason to rebuild. If there is challenge, now the body starts paying attention. This matters even more after menopause, because research shows the menopausal transition is associated with measurable declines in lean and muscle mass, and physical activity helps preserve it. In one longitudinal study, women experience significant drops in lean mass measures across the transition, while higher physical activity was linked with better preservation of muscle-related measures. PubMed Central. So no, this is not all in your head. And no, you are not imagining that your body changed faster than you expected. There is real biology behind it. But here is the hopeful part. Biology is not destiny if you understand how to work with it. One of the most important examples comes from a well-known trial in postmenopausal women with low bone mass. These were not elite athletes. These were women many people would assume should be extra fragile and extra cautious. And instead of being told to avoid challenge completely, they did supervised high-intensity resistance and impact training twice a week for 30 minutes. Twice a week, not every day, not 2 hours at a time. Twice a week, 30 minutes with serious effort. And the results were powerful. Bone density improved at important sites, functional performance improved, height changed favorably, compliance was high, and only one minor adverse event was reported in the training group PubMed. Now, that does not mean every woman listening should immediately run into a gym and try to max out deadlifts. That is not the point. The point is this: challenging strength work, done properly and progressively, is not the enemy after menopause. It may be one of the biggest forms of protection. And that completely changes the conversation, because a lot of women are still using a pre-menopause strategy in a post-menopause body. They think, if I just eat cleaner, do a little cardio, and maybe add a protein shake, that should do it. But after menopause, your body often needs more from you in the strength department, not less. Now another question comes up fast. What if it's too late? What if you already feel weaker? What if you already lost visible muscle? What if your arms, glutes, or thighs have already changed and you feel like you missed your window? The answer is, do not assume it is too late. A review on sarcopenia in menopausal women makes it very clear that menopause-related muscle decline is strongly influenced by hormonal change, especially falling estrogen, and that exercise is one of the central tools for managing that decline. PMC. In other words, muscle loss after menopause is common, but it is not something you are supposed to passively surrender to. You can interrupt it, you can slow it, and in many cases, you can rebuild significant strength. But there is also a reason not to wait forever. The longer muscle goes underused, the more difficult the comeback can become. Strength is not just about muscle fibers. It is also about nervous system efficiency, connective tissue support, coordination, power, and confidence. When women stop training or never train in a meaningful way, they are not just losing shape, they are losing function. And function is what gives you independence. Function is what lets you get off the floor easily. Function is what lets you carry luggage, climb stairs without fear, get out of a chair without using your hands, catch yourself if you trip, move furniture, lift grandchildren, and keep living inside your body with confidence. That is why this conversation cannot be reduced to aesthetics. Yes, muscle changes how you look, but more importantly, muscle changes how you live. Now let's make this practical. If I were explaining this to a woman after menopause in the simplest possible way, I would say this: your job is no longer just to exercise more. Your job is to give your muscle a reason to stay. And the fastest way to do that is to train it with resistance at least twice per week. Not randomly, not when you feel guilty, not only when motivation shows up. Twice per week, like an appointment with your future self. So what should those 2 sessions actually look like? They should focus on the major muscle groups. That means some kind of squat pattern, some kind of hinge pattern, some kind of push, some kind of pull, and some kind of carry or core stability work. For example, a training day might include a squat or leg press, a hip hinge like a deadlift variation or Romanian deadlift, a row, a chest press or push-up variation, and then loaded carries or anti-rotation core work. Another day might include split squats or step-ups, a glute bridge or hip thrust, a pull-down or assisted pull movement, a shoulder press, and then farmer carries or controlled trunk work. Notice what is missing. There is no chaos. There is no need to do 20 exercises. There is no requirement to crawl out of the gym destroyed. The point is progressive challenge. Choose movements you can perform safely. Learn good form. And over time, ask your body to do a little more load, a little more control, a little more range, a little more confidence. If you are completely new, start conservatively. If you already train, train with more intention. What matters is that the muscle feels demand, because demand is what preserves tissue. This is also why super light routines can become a trap. If the weights are so light that your body never has to adapt, you may feel busy without truly changing the signal. That does not mean every set must be maximal, but it does mean the work should become meaningfully challenging by the end of the set. You want the body to notice. You want the body to say, we still need this strength. Now, let's come back to protein, because protein does matter. It is just not the whole story. Most women after menopause do not need to obsess over bizarre nutrition rules. They need to stop under-eating protein and stop assuming one low-protein salad plus a shake somehow covers the day. A recent review focused on postmenopausal women suggests that total daily intake matters, but so does distribution. It points out that 30 to 40 grams of protein in at least 1 to 2 meals may be beneficial. And expert groups often recommend protein intakes above the bare minimum RDA for older adults because of anabolic resistance MDPI. That means if you eat a tiny breakfast, a tiny lunch, and then all your protein at dinner, you may be missing repeated opportunities to stimulate muscle protein synthesis across the day. This is where quality matters too. Leucine-rich proteins tend to work better for this purpose because leucine is a major trigger for the muscle-building signal. Whey is rich in leucine. Dairy proteins can be useful. Animal proteins often make it easier to reach a strong amino acid profile per serving. Plant-based eaters can absolutely support muscle, but it usually requires more planning, more total volume, or blended protein sources to hit the same anabolic threshold effectively MDPI. So if your goal is protecting muscle after menopause, stop asking only, "Did I have protein today?" Ask better questions. Did I get enough total protein? Did I get enough in each meaningful meal? Did I give my body a reason to use it? Did I train? Because that last question changes everything. And this is where women often separate into two groups. The first group keeps searching for the perfect supplement while avoiding the hardest but most effective habit. The second group starts doing the simple, powerful things consistently. That second group is usually the one that changes. Now, what about creatine? Creatine is one of the few supplements that keeps coming up in serious discussions around strength, especially for older adults. A meta-analysis in older females found that creatine combined with resistance training improved strength, particularly when training lasted at least 24 weeks, even though muscle mass itself did not consistently increase across studies PMC. That is important. Because sometimes women expect one supplement to visibly transform their physique in a month. That is not how this works. Creatine is support. Resistance training is the driver. Protein is the raw material. Together, they create a much stronger system than any of them alone. Vitamin D also matters, especially if you are low, because vitamin D is involved in muscle function and physical performance. Reviews suggest it may be most helpful in those who are deficient or frail, rather than acting like a magic bullet for everyone. PMC, National Center for Biotechnology Information. Omega-3 fats are promising too, especially for inflammation and muscle health, but the evidence is more mixed than people sometimes make it sound. That means they may be helpful, but they should never replace training, adequate protein, and basic recovery habits. PMC, National Center for Biotechnology Information. And then there is the boring stuff that ends up being not boring at all. Sleep, daily movement, recovery, stress. These things matter because you are not building muscle in the workout. You are stimulating change in the workout. The rebuilding happens afterward. So if you train twice a week but sleep terribly, eat too little, sit all day, and stay in a constant stress state, you are giving your body mixed signals. This is why walking still matters, even though walking alone is not enough. General physical activity helps preserve lean tissue and function. It supports recovery, insulin sensitivity, circulation, mood, and consistency. It keeps the body from slipping into that inactive state where decline accelerates. PubMed Central. So the formula is not lift twice a week and ignore everything else. The formula is use strength training as the anchor, then let nutrition and lifestyle support it. Now let me make this even simpler. If you are after menopause and want to protect muscle, here is the hierarchy. First, resistance train at least twice a week. Second, make sure your meals actually contain enough protein to matter. Third, keep moving on non-lifting days. Fourth, recover like it counts. Fifth, if needed, use smart support like creatine or correcting a vitamin D deficiency. That is the real order. Not supplements first, not cardio first, not starvation first, not scale weight first, function first, strength first, signal first. Because once your body gets a reason to keep muscle, everything else starts making more sense. And maybe the most important thing I can say to any woman listening is this. Do not let the softness, fatigue, or weakness you feel right now convince you that decline is your new identity. It is feedback. It is information. It is your body telling you the old strategy no longer works. That is all. Not that you are finished. Not that you are too old. Not that you missed your chance. It means the rules changed, so your strategy has to change too. After menopause, protein is still important, but protein alone is not enough because muscle is not protected by nutrition in a vacuum. Muscle is protected when your body sees a repeated reason to stay strong. And if you give it that reason twice a week, week after week, month after month, your body can become more capable than it feels right now. Maybe not overnight, maybe not dramatically in 2 weeks, but very often, far more than you think. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Stop treating strength training like an optional extra. Treat it like your body's instruction manual after menopause. Eat the protein, yes. Support recovery, yes. Walk, sleep, manage stress, yes. But twice a week, ask your muscles to work hard enough that your body remembers they still matter. That is when the conversation changes. That is when food stops going nowhere. That is when confidence starts returning. That is when your body begins to feel like it belongs to you again. And that is exactly why, after menopause, protein is not enough. You also have to give your body a reason to use it, twice a week, consistently, on purpose. And if you start there, you are no longer guessing. You are rebuilding.